The east coast of Australia consists of over 2,000 kilometres of beaches and steep mountain ranges. It combines uniquely Australian cities, which can match the New York skyline, with splendid treasures of nature such as the Great Barrier Reef. Because of the great distances involved, organising your own independent trip across Australia is very difficult. You can watch the symbols of Sydney from the harbour. The Opera House with its roofs shaped as sails led to financial problems. It's also commonly called the French football playing nun. The harbour bridge, called the coat hanger, lies on the other side and serves as the most important means of communication between the north and south parts of Sydney. When you take part in the 3-hour climb up the bridge, you need to be fit and you shouldn't be afraid of heights. From the highest point, you have a wonderful view of what's happening in the harbour. Here the bridge rises 134 metres up toward the Australian sky. The circular quay is a busy junction and a gateway to the city. Ferries and ships land here. You really shouldn't miss a sightseeing tour around the harbour. In nice weather, street performers tease passers-by in front of the impressive skyline. Apart from buses in Sydney, there is another means of transport that is as modern as the city itself. The single-track line circumnavigates the city through the small streets of Darling Harbour down to the city centre. There are 1,504 stairs up, or if preferred, it takes 40 seconds to ascend by lift to the observatory of the AMP Tower. From the highest building in Sydney, 305 metres high, you have a grandiose view of the metropolis. You can use binoculars to zoom in on the interesting details, for example the Piermont Bridge, the first electric swing bridge, or St Mary's Cathedral. In the historical centre of the city, you find total contrast to skyscrapers and high tech. The first British convict colony, the Rocks, was founded here over the rocks that gave it its name. George Street, in the very heart of this quarter, is lined with cafes and galleries. To this day, the carefully reconstructed houses with authentic shops inside evoke the origins of the city. What's also interesting are the art workshops such as the Puppet Market. It doesn't matter if the puppets seem original or, as some say, kitschy. Outside the Rocks there are some old buildings too, for example the Queen Victoria building. The market, built in 1890, houses the most expensive and the most fashionable shops from all over the world. Everything centres on Queen Victoria in this, perhaps finest of shopping centres. In the middle of the gallery there is a showcase with the Queen's Memorial that revolves here in between the exclusive displays. Today there are about 200 cafes and shops under the huge glass dome. This is a great shopping experience despite the high prices. After the shopping you can have a rest in nearby Hyde Park. The green lungs of Sydney are full of countless small paths and large lawns. The inhabitants of Sydney spend their lunch breaks here, or they enjoy the last rays of sunshine in the evening here after work. In Hyde Park lies the Archibald Brunnen, a wonderful structure made of bronze and granite commemorating the French-Australian alliance in World War I. Darling Harbour offers not only an impressive spectacle in the daytime, but it is also a popular place at night. Open-air concerts take place regularly at the pier. Bands from all over the world attract the multicultural Sydney audience to the harbour. Due to hot Latin American rhythms and open-air dances, the Australian metropolis exudes a unique atmosphere. There is the other side to Darling Harbour, the darker atmosphere of bars and clubs. Typical in Sydney are endless queues and high admission fees in order to be squeezed onto the smallest piece of dance floor and to have a few drinks. While some go to bed by sunrise, for others a new day begins. Every morning a fish market opens by the pillars of Piermont Bridge. Of course the fish and other seafood are freshly caught from the sea, an advantage of a harbour town. Tasmanian oysters, salmon, tuna and crabs wait here for fastidious tongues at affordable prices. If you don't have a kitchen or you can't cook, you can have your groceries prepared right on the beach. The gate to Chinatown in Sydney is in Factory Street. Besides Chinese immigrants, the streets are crowded with Vietnamese, Koreans and Taiwanese, so that the streets are firmly in Asian hands. An exotic trip to the culinary world of Asia is easily afforded here. Around Oxford Street in the southeast part of Sydney, you find the Paddington Town District. Paddington Market is a highlight of this Victorian quarter. Starting in the 70s, a diverse mixture of alternative artists and trinket sellers began to meet here every Saturday. Its participants characterise Paddington Market as uniquely Australian, and it is unmatched by other conventional markets in Sydney. For them, it's an expression of street culture. The Taronga Zoo offers a shift from city life. Retreat 4 kilometres from the city centre and you have a chance to make friends with the animal residents of Australia. You shouldn't expect any high jumps from wallabies or kangaroos. These animals are active at night, and in the daylight they prefer to laze about in the sun. Well protected from predators by their spines, echidnas search amongst all the chinks to find some food. They are definitely not shy, rather they are snuggling and very curious. In the koala bear enclosure, there is a peaceful tranquility. Here the lazy marsupial finds all that it needs to be happy: a branch to sleep on and a twig to eat. You can closely observe also the most dangerous inhabitants of Australia, as crocodiles are also here in the zoo. Foreigners look good here too in front of the Sydney skyline. To grasp just how big Melbourne is, visitors should start with a panoramic view from the Rialto Towers, the highest building in the city. You can easily spot the Victorian railway station called the Flinders Street Station. Here the sightseeing tours usually begin too. The station, as well as Flinders Street, were named after Captain Flinders, the first sailor to sail round the whole Australian continent. St Paul's Cathedral towers over the station. In Melbourne, many different kinds of architecture exist side by side. Trams evoking past times past historical buildings, state-of-the-art houses and modern skyscrapers. Despite the fact that Melbourne has many immigrants of so many different nationalities, it has the most British features of all Australian cities. Though the city is an important economic centre, Melbourne isn't as hectic as its rival Sydney. It has about 3 million inhabitants, and Melbourne wasn't founded by convicts but by free citizens. Melbourne inhabitants are sports fans. Between the houses there has been a free space left for teenagers so that they may sow their wild oats. Beginners as well as professionals try risky jumps at the skateboard park in Lonsdale Street. Converse feeling seize you when visiting the old Melbourne jail. Crime grew in Melbourne too, although the city wasn't founded on the deportation of convicts. The former prison permits an interesting insight into the prisoners' lives, even though the experience wasn't as extreme as it was in the convict camps.
Here at Old Melbourne Jail, we're trying to show our visitors what it must have been like to have been either a male or a female prisoner in this building 150 years ago. Conditions were very, very severe. The punishments meted out were very, very difficult for the prisoners to face. Food quality was very poor. All in all, it was a miserable place for a person to be during this period of Melbourne's history.
The prison documents life conditions and sad stories of the prisoners until their penalty of death. The sound of the gallows drop, through which the hanged fell, evokes terror even to this day. 135 unfortunate prisoners were condemned to death and executed. After the sentence was executed, wax prints were taken from the heads of the hanged. The prints were used for phrenology studies in an attempt to determine criminal character of a person on the basis of the shape of his or her skull and facial features. Ned Kelly, the most feared Australian bushranger who terrorised people for long years with robbery and murder, was also imprisoned here after he was arrested in Melbourne. He was shielded from the shots by his armour, which you can still see here today. In the end, it was necessary to bring him down with 28 shots to his arms and legs so he could be arrested. And on 11th of November 1880, he was executed. Far from the pits of human souls and Melbourne Prison, we arrive at the Botanic Gardens. Entrance is free and you are enticed to take a walk. 12,000 species of plants flourish here in the 40-hectare park. Tropical greenhouses and their natural beauty make the park renowned as one of the most beautiful in the world. Some of the trees were planted hundreds of years ago. The beauty of Victoria State is confined not only to Melbourne itself. When leaving the city heading west on the Great Ocean Road, the visitor finds the most fascinating coastal areas of Australia. Probably the most famous beach in Australia is the Bells Beach at Torgay, the Australian surf capital. The company headquarters of surf enterprise Rip Curl and Quicksilver is here. The biggest Australian surf event, the Rip Curl Open Waters, takes place every year at Bells Beach. The beach is also famous thanks to the film Point Break, starring Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. Waves up to 5 metres high attract surfers from all over the world to Bells Beach. But Bells Beach is only the beginning of the wild, romantic, ragged coast running along the Great Ocean Road. You don't have to cover the whole of the 320 kilometres. To experience the fascinating power of nature, you need only travel just a short distance. Cairns, enclosed by Trinity Bay and the Atherton tableland, was often overlooked. Even though it is visited more and more by normal tourists, it has kept its backpacker atmosphere because the backpackers first discovered this town in tropical Queensland as a tourist destination. Captain Cook, who discovered the bay, welcomes visitors and shows the way to the Esplanade in Cairns' quiet centre. The most beautiful beaches lie in Cairns and its surroundings. Saved from the crowds, you can have a good time and relax here depending on what you feel like and on your mood. Your thoughts are accompanied only by a soft sea wind. If you drive only a few kilometres inland from Cairns, you get to the chasms on the Barron River. For many rafting adventurers, their prime destination is this river flowing in between these shores. Before the start, everybody gets appropriate footwear, a crash helmet, oars for the chasms, and a life jacket. It's worth the effort to carry the boat to the water before you readily plunge into the waves. The Barron River, based on degrees of difficulty, lies in the category of easy rivers that are suitable for beginners. Of course, the instructor must now and then intervene to prevent the boat capsizing or taking care of a slower kayaker. The Barron River won't disappoint you either if you find yourself alone in the narrow boat. Through the chasms of the Barron River to the interior of Cairns, the journey continues by the Kuranda Scenic Railway. The starting point is Cairns itself. An alternative is to get on the train in the middle at Freshwater Station. This historical train was built at the turn of the 20th century, and since then it has been looked after with loving care. The line goes through chasms, over small bridges and through tunnels up to the Atherton tableland, 300 metres high. The journey takes approximately 1 hour around the waterfalls on Barron River and across the rainforest. Along the Kuranda streets there are many restaurants, cafes and shops with souvenirs. You may find all your heart yearns for here, or maybe not. You can buy everything from trinkets to indispensable souvenirs. The Butterfly Park, opened in 1987, is still interesting for many visitors. Since opening, it has seen more than 1 million visitors. The biggest Australian breeder with more than 1,500 butterflies of 35 different species has successfully entered the Guinness Book of Records. The biggest butterflies of Australia, the cobalt blue Ulysses and the cairn bird butterfly, fly under the glass roof. Without using the train again, you can get back to the valley by small sky rail wagons. You can view the whole region from high above the treetops. The view of the vegetation bewitches all observers. Your impression of the rainforest is strengthened at one of the stations. There is a trail laid in the moist tropical vegetation with a view to introducing local flora to visitors and to observe the plants better. Rangers are glad to guide tourists through the forest and to talk about their beloved plants.
What we're looking at is a plant that's called wait a while. Why it's called wait a while? You see what happened. See? Once it hooks onto you, I can't get away. Now, the wait a while grows on the lawyer vine. From the lawyer vine, we get all of our cane furniture. Once that reach the very top, it'll shed their leaves, their bark. Once that all fall off, 3/4 of that will peel off and then becomes a lawyer cane. Now, if you were to look at the lawyer cane there, see that lawyer cane? That is where we get all our cane furniture from.
The rainforest hides many plants that are useful. You only have to know what they look like. Smithfield, the terminal of the Skyrail, lies in Chakupai, a park of Aboriginal culture. The life, culture and history of the Aborigines are authentically represented here. Tourists get an accurate insight into the world of the Aborigines. A special attraction is the singing and dancing of the winning group.
Today we'll put up camp. Today we'll light a fire. Today we'll put on a corroboree.
trip to the Great Barrier Reef is a highlight for every visitor to Cairns. You can get to the reef by ferry, catamaran or big boat. This, the longest reef in the world, stretches for 2,300 kilometres off the Queensland coast. You land on a pontoon, which is a kind of floating platform. If you want to, you can hire diving equipment there. Whether you are short or tall, everybody can find an appropriate outfit.
Go try your things on, quickly. Try your things on.
If you are a little afraid of water and you want to admire the reef with dry feet, you can take a helicopter trip. Apart from underwater exploration, the flight by helicopter is the most impressive way to get to know the reef. With a bird's eye view, it is easy to picture the Great Reef. The Great Barrier Reef isn't a continuous belt, rather it is formed by more than 300 separate islands, reefs and atolls. The reef was created by living organisms. Therefore, it forms more diverse shapes within 1 cubic metre than any other part of the Earth. Divers from all over the world are attracted to the Great Barrier Reef. This subaqueous world and its inhabitants are quite unique. You can dive from the pontoon directly into the underwater landscape of the Great Barrier Reef, face to face with morays, clownfish and other beauties. Sharks, however, you meet only rarely. The reef offers a unique, mysterious experience at your fingertips. Tourists without a diving certificate shouldn't miss the chance to take a trip in a glass-bottom boat. Myriad schools of beautifully coloured fish of all sizes swim right next to the windows of the boat and look like they couldn't care less that they are being observed. Travelling to the east coast of Australia is well worth it, and it has a great deal to offer the individual. Queensland, with its capital Brisbane, is regarded as a sportsman's paradise. New South Wales and its metropolis Sydney is the most densely populated area. Victoria attracts you with its diversity, and busy Melbourne has a fascinating history and a quite unique natural world.